When we complete the first part of a multi-part feature, the first question we're asked is, when is part 2? And that's always a complicated question because sometimes that involves us getting around a scheduling conflict, like if we have to go to a convention, that's going to delay part 2. Sometimes it just has to do with the work week. We get tied up with things at the day jobs and we can't get around to getting part 2 done yet. We try and get part 2 or part 3 sometimes done as fast as possible after part 1. Sometimes it involves thinking about the script or waiting for new materials to come in. And sometimes it's just a logistics issue. This is the RetroBlasting archive. This is where part 2 of most of our multi-part features are done. Because part 1 is generally the analysis of the show, and part 2 are the toy breakdowns where we talk about the merchandising and the action figures. So as you've probably seen, we like to do part 2 in a different setting, not by the television, because that's where the cartoon is shown. You know, we try and create environments. So one environment will be the television where people would watch the show. So we do those videos there. And then part 2 is going to be down in the toy archive where kids would, you know, generally play if they were, you know, playing with their action figures. But sometimes, as you can see, the archive gets a little cluttered. And it gets cluttered because we have material coming in all the time. One of our policies at RetroBlasting is we'll never show you an incomplete toy or a broken toy in a photo on the Facebook page or on our website. And we generally try not to show you incomplete or broken things in videos. We just think that's a waste of your time and it's a waste of our time. But every now and then when we get a large number of things in, we have a finite amount of space and it starts to fill up. And I know you probably can't get a good sense of how big the room is in here, but it's not that big. The lens might be making it look bigger than it is. But I need to clean up in here because we've acquired some new items like these Star Trek ships, and I've got to get everything consolidated so that I can actually work in here to film Vehicle Voltron Part 2. And that's something that's been delayed because of my day job schedule. So enough about that. I'm going to start cleaning up in here, and you're welcome to follow along as I clean up this space. Don't worry, I'll time lapse it. So I guess I'm going to get started. This whole process is kind of like it's like a really complicated Jenga game. You have all of your different bins and your different categories, and you have to make sure that they go a certain way because most of us don't have mansions to go home to. So our space is limited. But as you can see, I run an air purifier in here. I try and keep everything at a good cool temperature and keep it dry. I have a dehumidifier, but it really dries out this particular room and it generates a lot of hot air, so I've stopped running it because it seems to stay pretty dry in here as it is. But once you get to a certain point with your collection, you have to make decisions. And unfortunately for me right now, that decision is I can't display everything I have collected because I just don't have the room. But I need to have quick access to it because we run RetroBlasting. So I see this little studio room as less of a toy archive and more like a big toolbox. It's binned. I know you can't see this wall, but the wall right beyond the camera lens is also stacked with bins. This wall is stacked with bins, just like this one is. They're all organized, but they can be a little challenging to get to. You have to strategize when you come into this space how you're going to get to certain things. So you really need to know where they are, and you have to keep that consistent at all times. We just got done doing the squid head photographs, which I did rapidly last night, and that was something that didn't require a lot of space for cameras and things like that, so I was able to do that without moving or reorganizing a lot of the material. But I've now reached a point where I can't avoid it anymore. I have to get in here and figure this out. So you guys get to come along for the ride. You might have seen that photograph that I took and posted on the Facebook page earlier this week where I was organizing G.I. Joes. One of the constant headaches about doing videos and also having a large toy collection that's not on display, although the way we have it might actually make it easier, is that you make this big effort to get everything sort of corralled in its own bin and nicely organized, and then 3 weeks later you're digging into it because you've come up with a video idea, and so you have to go rooting around and finding everything. And then when you get done with the video, you've got all these parts that were once organized now all strewn around, and you have to then quickly get everything cleaned up because you might have a guest coming over for something completely unrelated, or you might have another video you have to do, or you just need the space cleared as fast as possible. And so things kind of get thrown haphazardly back into bins, and then you know that that's a ticking time bomb where you're going to have to go reorganize it again later. So it's an endless process. There's probably somebody out there right now saying, what an idiot. I know how to do this better. If he would only do this. Feel free to post a comment and let me know, because I'm all ears. My G.I. Joes have always been in a series of shoe boxes. It's never really changed. I just keep adding shoe boxes every time I get enough Joes to overflow the existing shoe boxes, and now I'm at critical mass again, and it looks like I'm running out of room, so I'm gonna have to rethink this. We just went to the Northwest Georgia Toy Show, and we took the shotgun mic with us, so I'm making sure that it gets reseated because we're going to need that for Vehicle Voltron Part 2. Okay. All right. You get to a point with your toy collection where if you don't constantly maintain it, it can become a real burden. And you know, I hate to say that because I love action figures and 80s toys a lot, but you start to become less of a fan sometimes and more of a curator, where you're having to, you know, really make sure that all the rare paintings are, you know, cataloged properly. In the case of an expanding toy collection like this, which is based somewhat on personal interest and then somewhat on the requests of the audience, you know, you guys have some great suggestions for videos, and I definitely want to make those happen. Because, you know, you've requested it, and that's humbling to me, because it says that you're interested in seeing our take, RetroBlasting's take on a specific toy line, which means that you're not just out there looking for any old video, or maybe you did and it didn't satisfy you, and you're coming to us saying, I'm looking for something at a different standard or a different style. So we really want to do justice to that. So when we take a request, or I'll put it to you this way, we always take requests. You just have to work with our schedule to figure out how long it's going to take us to acquire what we need. So anytime you guys ask, could you do a video on whatever, fill in the blank, we're never going to say no. We're just going to say, well, yeah, we'll do it. We have no guarantee how long it'll take us to find all the items, find all the action figures or all the play sets or whatever we feel like we need to make that video effective. So, for example, right now I just recently got a collection of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons figures from LJN that I'm slowly growing because we're going to be doing a Dungeons and Dragons video at some point. But because I've not owned any of them before, they're awesome, by the way, I can't wait to talk about them, I need a new container because I don't have a designated place for them. So these kinds of challenges are always cropping up. So if you have a toy archive like this or a collection, you have to make sure that there's some flexibility built into it, because otherwise, if you get too staunch or too OCD, you're going to run out of space. So for example, I categorize anything that's related to sort of like 70s television, like Battlestar Galactica or Buck Rogers. That all kind of goes together because there isn't enough of it to warrant each one having a dedicated bin. I already know that I'm going to put Filmation Ghostbusters and Real Ghostbusters in the same bin for storage. All of the Star Wars kind of stays together. Robotech now has its own bin. Dukes of Hazzard has its own bin. Batman spilling over. You have to make these determinations all the time. And as you can see, I don't really have a dedicated storage space yet for Star Trek, and it keeps blowing up. So I've got some decisions to make here in the next few weeks if I'm ever going to effectively film down here again. Well, as you can see, we've cleared out some space, so we are ready to comfortably shoot Vehicle Voltron Part 2, starting tomorrow. Really looking forward to getting that video finished. We've shot a little bit of it. We've got the script written. I know you guys have been waiting for it. It's going to come soon. But until we get more space, this is just going to be one of those parts of the process that's not very fun, but necessary, and sometimes it delays us a little bit. But rest assured, we won't ever shirk that responsibility so that we can keep bringing you guys great videos about retro toys and cartoons. One thing I want to mention before we go is that there is an official RetroBlasting Etsy store. So if you guys are looking for collectibles and you're looking for reputable toy collectors who describe everything accurately and aren't going to, you know, swindle you, the RetroBlasting Etsy store, we put up a lot of the duplicates that we get into the archive when we're trying to assemble a grouping for a video. So we put together the duplicates and then we put those online. We're not turning into toy dealers now. I don't want you to think that we're going to have like this huge store with tons of inventory, but sometimes we do turn around things when we have duplicates. So please go onto our Etsy store. If you just look up RetroBlasting on Etsy, you'll find it. We're putting up things probably once every week or so. We have a few things up there right now. Very, very low prices for what we put up because we're not toy hunters. We don't believe in, you know, trying to get top dollar for stuff. We're just trying to collect our own stuff and then pass everything else on that's still usable and good to go to anyone who wants it. So check that out, and thanks for watching this. I hope this has been fun for you guys seeing the RetroBlasting archive, and we'll see you on the next video, Vehicle Voltron Part 2.